So we're at the middle of the year. I can't believe this is occurring. I can't believe we're almost to summer. I'm craving summer, but I did want to do a little bit of a year wrap up. I want to do my mid-year review. I want to do a summer TBR. So this is the first one. I'm gonna talk about a couple of books that just did not wow me recently and sort of disappointed me. I sort of went in with higher expectations and they just did not do it. Again, I always say that when I do these videos, these are my own opinions. If these are your favorite books ever, I know a lot of people have enjoyed them, especially one that I'm going to talk about. I'm happy you liked it. It just didn't work for me, and I'm going to tell you why. So let's get into it. I am going to chat about is definitely the book that I think the most people that I've seen and who I follow really enjoyed, and that is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. Here is a photo. I will preface this by saying that I struggle sometimes with thrillers because I struggle with unlikable characters, and that's just me as a reader. So I went into this book cautiously optimistic because I heard some really, really good things, but there was no redeemable characters in this book, like, at all. They were all mean people. I didn't really root for anyone. I didn't care who died or who killed who, but you basically follow these six friends as they sort of go back to their college for their 5 or 10 year reunion, and they are the revelation about who killed their best friend or a friend of theirs sort of uncovers because one of their friends was in jail for a very, very long time for this murder. Starts to uncover what happened. The problem I had with this book was that, like, the main character was super unlikable, but also every other character in the story was super unlikable. But it was addictive to keep reading. I just hated reading it because I was like, I almost didn't even want to finish, but I did want to know what happened. So I was very, very conflicted. I did finish it. I finished it like in like a day because it was a very, 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 very quick read. But I just didn't feel anything for the characters, and it just fell a little bit flat to me. Sorry that it didn't work for me, but I'm happy if it worked for you. So yeah, that's my thoughts on In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. Really good title though. That was definitely the best. The title was the best. That is one that I was so excited for. The cover was so pretty. But that is Wild Sea Witch by Marty Dumas. Here is a photo. That reminded me a lot of Marty and the Night Brothers, but it had a lot of elements of a Marty and the Night Brothers. Like, there was a school, there was, you know, the Black experience was at the heart of this story. The one thing that this book lacked was like tension. They did talk about like racism and like racism inside of your your population or your group. I like that, but I didn't feel like there was enough tension pulling the story forward. In Amari and the Night Brothers, there is a really solid mystery or a really solid tension, something that keeps you wanted to read. This book lacked that. So for me, it was like I was really fascinated by the world. I really liked the characters. There was the potentiality of something, like a potentiality of like a more of a mystical element that came with the story, but it didn't really develop as much. So as much as I love the world, I just felt like the story lacked a lot of tension. I will definitely read book 2, and hopefully maybe we'll get a little bit more of a mystery, a little bit more of like a developed plot. But the plot was a little bit lackluster, so it was hard for me to feel like connected to the story. So that's why it's on this list. The book I am going to chat about is going to be Very Bad People by Kit Frith. I loved I Killed Zoe Spanos. Like, I really love that book, and I was hoping this would be a similar reading experience, but unfortunately it did not have a similar reading experience. A girl named Calliope, I think that's her name, and many, many years ago, there was an incident, and her mother drove them into the river, and her mother died, and her and her 3 sisters survived. And that's sort of like the background of the story. But then she winds up going to the school that her mother went to and sort of gets tapped to be join the secret society. And it very much focuses on the secret society and righting wrongs in societies, stuff like that. Very much focuses on that. And I was hoping it would be more about her mother and the mystery about why her mother drove them into the river. It really didn't focus a lot on that. And it was just a little bit of like, not as captivating for me. Like, I wasn't as captivated in the secret society stuff like as much. She does write characters that are very unlikable, I will say that. So there was elements of that, but that wasn't even the thing that bothered me in the story. It was just that like I wanted more mystery and I didn't get mystery. Zoe Spanish was all mystery and I love the structure of that story. So I think this story, the way that it was written, just was didn't work for me. And I really wanted more of a mystery, especially like the mystery about her mother. That was not the primary of the story, and I think maybe the summary misread me a little bit because I was going and thinking that, and that's not what I got. But it was okay. It was an enjoyable read. It just wasn't a new favorite of mine. Chat about is the third book in the Catherine Arden companion series. I guess it's like a series because it's like a seasonal one, so every book takes place in a season, and then you follow these 3 or 4 characters. This one is called Darker Waters or Dark Waters, and it's the spring one. So I wanted to save this to read this during spring, and it just sort of fell flat, to be honest with you. I really like the first 2 books in the series, the fall and the winter one. This one, I just felt like it was like there wasn't a lot happening, and I almost felt like it was just like you needed this story because you did a seasonal thing and like you needed a spring story, but the story wasn't that strong and it was just a little bit weak. And like it didn't captivate me as much as the other ones, and it just felt a little bit disjointed. It was also really, really short, and I felt like right when the story would have got good, the story ended, and I just felt like it could have been a part of the final book and you could have combined those 2 seasons into one story, and I think it could have been stronger. I did get the last book as an e-arc and I hope to read it soon, but this one just fell a little bit flat and it wasn't as captivating and the story wasn't as engaging as the previous ones. So yeah, this one came out a while ago, but it just didn't wow me when I read it. What I chat about is one of my 5-star read predictions from last year that I just did not love as much as I was hoping, and that is The Rules for Disappearing by Ashley Elston. All of Ashley Elston's stories, she sort of deviated a little bit more into contemporary for her last couple of releases, and I really love those. I loved her first couple of mysteries. I loved The Lying Woods and This Is Our Story. This one was her debut, and I will admit, it just didn't wow me. It felt very middle grady, and it just the characters were not that engaging. We basically follow this girl, I can't even remember her name, it's been so long, and she's sort of put in the witness protectors program for a certain reason. She doesn't know the reason, and then she sort of has to move a lot, and this new place she moves into, she starts to try to uncover why she's in witness protection, and she gets some unexpected answers. It was a fun read. It just didn't wow me. I never got around to reading the next book in the series. I might get around to reading it eventually, but it's a duology. The characters I just didn't love as much as her previous characters, and I think that's why I didn't want to finish it. But I did finish the book. I just don't know if I want to finish the series, but it was okay. It just didn't wow me, and I just felt like the characters were not as strong as her characters in her later books. And the next book we're going to chat about is a really, really big disappointment, and that is Sea Witch Rising by Sarah Henning, and here is a photo. I love Sea Witch when I read it the first time. I love that story a lot. It was really, really interesting take on how, you know, she became the Sea Witch. This was sort of a story that involved a little bit more Ariel, and the story just felt so disjointed, and it just was a really like inconsistent story. The characters weren't likable. It was dual point of view, this story. The first one wasn't that way, and I just felt like it was a really muddled story that felt just a little bit disconnected. I really have liked everything else that I read by Sarah Henning. I liked the first book. This book just wasn't my cup of tea. I slogged through it. I think I listened to most of it too. But it just wasn't my favorite, unfortunately. And the last book I'm going to chat about in this video is The Verifiers by Jane Peck. And here is a photo. Some more like cozy mysteries, but like with more of like a diverse twist. Like I read Homicide and Halo and really loved that series. I read Finally Down and is Killing It. And I read, Arsenic and Adobo and Four Aunties in a Wedding. Those series I really liked. This one it sounded really interesting, but ultimately it just sort of fell flat. But you follow this girl, and lives in New York City. She's Asian American. She's Chinese, Chinese American. She was born here. I think she was born here. Maybe she wasn't born here. But she is having a hard time sort of getting her feet under her. She is not the perfect Asian American daughter. by any means, but she sort of gets roped into this thing of being a verifier for people on social media to make sure that they're dating people that actually exist and they have no secrets. And she sort of gets tangled up in this mystery. The mystery element was really, really fun, but the story just sort of fell flat. Like, I didn't really feel connected to the characters, and I felt like the mystery just was a little bit weird and just felt a little bit disjointed. But it was fun. I would read more and set in this world because it was interesting. It just wasn't what I was expecting, and I think that's why it fell a little bit flat. But let me know in the comments what are some books that just fell flat for you or that you really didn't like. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys soon for my next video. Bye, friends.